Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this is the fourth episode in my mini-series on how I became a funded trader through BULENOX. If you're interested in using BULENOX, there is a link down below, but as I've said in the previous episodes, if you are looking for cheap deals, do not use my affiliate link. If you want to support me, that's great, I really appreciate it, but if you're looking for the cheapest way to get funded, you can find a better deal out there. In today's episode, I'm going to look at the approach that I use to become funded. We've already spoken about how I created my edge, how I backtested, paper trade, refined the edge until I was at a point where I knew that I had a very strong edge going into the funded account challenge. Today, I'm going to talk about my sizing strategy, and I'm also going to go through the trades that I took. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more of a fun episode than the last couple. Maybe it's the boring stuff that people don't want to hear to make them successful. Today, we're looking more at trades. So we left off last time looking at the equity curve that I had. We mentioned that the drawdown being not particularly large, and get a 7R drawdown maximum. And because of that, I could size fairly aggressively. If we just do the math real quick, I had $2,500 of risk, and the maximum R I lost was 7.2. So if we just plug that in real quickly, we can see that I could go on my largest drawdown and take $347 of risk and then hit the stop, which is a pretty good size to take. It's a lot bigger than a lot of the people who suggest to start a funded challenge. They say go small and what. I'm going to tell you right now the most efficient way of doing this is prove through paper trading that you can execute an edge that is good, and prove that the edge is big. Once you have got that, you can size significantly larger. You can use mini contracts, and you can just say, you know what, maybe this takes me 2 or 3 goes over the course of 2 months, or even less in my instance. I knew that I didn't have to make all that much to hit the funded target. If we look on the other side and we go, okay, $3,000 is the target. If I show you my risk of it's 400, I only need to make 7.5 R to become funded. That's really not all that much. For me, that could actually be 1 day, and it very nearly was 1 day. So the strategy I used going in was to have 1 R as $400. This gave me 6 R of risk in the beginning, and I was very aware that the one potential weakness that I could have was if I made 4R, 5R in a day, and then went on a drawdown period, I would still only have $2,500 from the peak. If I'm up 5R, I've got $2,000 account. I lose $2,500 from there. I'd only be down 1 and a bit R, but I would lose the account. That's the only weakness I saw in this. I said that's absolutely fine. It still makes the strategy work. The win percentage was pretty high, so the likelihood of me having multiple losses in a row is not that big. Now, I will make one admission. I hit the daily max loss on my 2nd or 3rd day trading, and I did this because I wanted to see what would happen. I was very green at this stage and thought maybe you just hit the max loss and they say no more trading today, come back tomorrow. Nope, no more trading today, and if you want to come back, you're going to have to pay a $70-something fee to refund your account. Fine, on me. I changed the approach after that to say that if at any point I lost $800 on the day, that I would not take any more trades. And this also meant, because I adjusted my size on half my trades, essentially, I'm taking only 1 R of risk, but on the other half, I'm taking 2 R of risk. And what that means is that if I got a trade that should have a 2 R risk, then I would only, and it was the first trade of the day, I would only take 1 R. I knew that this would hurt my profit, but it would give me a better chance of actually achieving the target, because if that was a loss, then I wouldn't be able to take the next trade. Whereas if it was, if I'd taken 2R and a loss, I wouldn't take the next trade. Whereas if it was only 1R, I'd be able to take the next trade. So my approach was really, I'm going aggressive, and I'm going to give myself the best opportunity to hit the target as soon as possible. Now, the ironic thing is, when we'll see here, I'll try and find my maximum loss periods. I may well have not included it in this. No, I don't think I did. I think I included that one. Either way, started on the 23rd. The very first trade I took was a loss. I at this point wasn't taking larger size with this particular setup. I don't actually think, based off of some of the refinements I made, this was the best trade in the world, but it was fine. I had just set up the account and I wanted to test out to make sure it all worked, so this was the first trade that I took. -1R to start off with. 28th of December, I took another losing trade to start out with. So was down 2R at the start, wasn't really too phased. And a little bit later on that day, I had my first big winning trade, which was a +5R trade. So now I'm up 3R on the day, on the account. It's all going well. And then here we are. Here was the maximum loss day on the 29th of December. I take my first trade, and it was a loss, -1R. And then the next trade, I took my larger size. That would mean I would take a -2R, and -2 plus -1 with $400 of risk is $1,200. My maximum risk is $1,100 before I get stopped out on the day. Now, the ironic thing is, when this stopped me out, I was still in profit by a small amount. I think the account got stopped at $50,200. And the reason that that is funny is that the next day that I traded, when I restarted the account, the first trade I took, I made 1.8R on, and the next trade I made 5R on. And what this meant was that had I not taken the larger size, if I'd have taken the smaller size, there was another trade later on that day, which would have been a winning trade on this day here. And it would have meant the day, I think I'd have closed out for about 1R, maybe break even. Had I not taken the bigger size, I would have finished that day probably with an account about $600 in profit. And then this day here would have meant I was funded. And that would have been on the 23rd, 28th, 29th, 3rd. I would have been funded after just 4 days of trading. However, I broke the rule and I had to reset. So when I say 9 days, it was 9 days from the 3rd. Started out really well. And the next trade I took was a loss. Again, this is unfortunate. At this point, I only needed this trade to work and I would have been funded. And this did get in my head, and I'll go through some of the psychology of this. This got in my head, the fact that I saw I could have been funded already. I began to make some mistakes. So the next trade that I took was fine, a legitimate trade. Trend breaks went long. Then I made my first actual technical mistake of the challenge, where I took a short when I really shouldn't have. This cost me 2R and kind of gave back a big chunk of the profit on the day. I essentially had a 4R drawdown, and that 2R trade I shouldn't have taken. I decided to step back and say, okay, I'm maybe not trading the best frame of mind right now. I'm going to finish the day up 2.8R, which, the account was at $1,100 or so in profit, or $1,000 in profit, whatever it was. And it meant I missed this trade, which would have made me 1.8. So this one mistake right here, where I lose 2R, and then as a result, I didn't take this next trade, it cost me 3.8R. And the crazy thing is, if we add 3.8 to 1.8 and 5, I think I would have been funded. I think had I taken those trades correctly, I would have been funded. So again, going into the next day, those thoughts did sort of hang over a little bit. A case of, if I had not made the mistakes that I did, then I would either be funded or very, very close to funded. The next day, I took a winning trade, and this one again, I think it was this one. If I had not made the 2 mistakes from the day before, I would have been funded on day 2 of this. So in my mind, I'm now thinking I could have been funded 3 times already. Good and bad parts of this. The good point, I know the strategy works, I know the edge is big, and I know that I'm already very close to being funded. The bad side is it begins to play on the mental side. It begins to make me question some of the trades I'm taking. It makes me nervous. Maybe this was the opportunity and now I'm not going to get funded. So a lot of conflicting emotions going on, a lot of frustration. And that led the next day to making a mistake because I missed a really good opportunity. I missed this trade here for a short, which would have made me, wouldn't have made me 3.45. It would have made me 1.7. But instead, I took two other trades because I didn't take that first one and got two more triggers. That again cost me 2.7. And this theme of, oh, if I hadn't made that mistake, I would have made money came in. And then accompanying that, I think it was the next trade I took where I lost another 1R. I began to realize that because one of the days I'd finished up a significant amount on the account, my max drawdown was now quite a bit higher than it had started off at. And it meant that during this period here, where I make 2.5 and then lose half an R, lose 1R, lose 1R, make 2.5, throughout this period here, I was very aware that I was only really living off of about a 3 or a 4, and sometimes only a 2R risk before the account would have to be reset. Part of me didn't really care because it's 70 bucks, it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, a lot of me was going, man, I could have been funded 3 times over already, and I've screwed up. And now I'm going to have to pay again, and maybe I keep on screwing up. So there was a little bit of pressure that built during this period. But continuing to execute well. I got pretty unlucky here that I got stopped out for 1R. Got stopped out again here for 1R. Stopped out again for 1R. This trade possibly wasn't all that good either. And then we had a winning trade on the 11th. I remember the strategy really settling the ship a little bit. I wasn't 100% certain on the trade, took it and was like, yeah, that was a good trade. It worked out really well. Lost all the profits immediately, and the frustrating part was this day on the 11th started off great and then it was really frustrating. I only took 1R on this trade because it was the first trade and I didn't want to take 2R and then be blown for the day. Later on, I had a setup that gave me a 2R trade and I went 2R and took a loss, which meant that I was down on the day. Had I executed the size that I wanted to, I'd have been up 2R on the day rather than down 0.5 of an R. So again, there's a lot of these sort of like little mental games going on in the head, not really helping out all that much. And then we'll go through to the 12th and we'll leave the 13th for next week's episode. So on the 12th, I had a win trade. This was on the day that I think CPI numbers came out, so there's a lot of volatility. Took a winning trade and then a losing trade. And I went into the 13th actually very aware that I only had, I think, 2R of risk, which was not a nice situation. But to recap all of this, again, with my journal, I'm looking at my accuracy the whole time. Throughout this period of live trading, I hit a 77.8% accuracy. The total profit that I made ended up being around about 8.7R. But the crucial thing here is the potential was more than double that. Now, some of that was because they traded smaller size and then had a winning trade. That happened a few times, and I would have taken larger size. So maybe my total profit truly would have been around about 11R, but I still only pulled out about 50% of the potential of the strategy. The crazy thing about that is that was with a 78% accuracy, and I only pulled out 50% of the strategy's potential profit. That is a really important thing to look at going forward. Just because I became funded, and we'll talk about all of that, the accuracy levels for me, I still want to improve. I still want to get to a point where I'm trading at a 90% accuracy and I can pull out 75 or 80% of the strategy's potential. So the sizing that I took, why did I take it? Why did I go with $400 as 1R and $800 as 2R? Or roughly those numbers anyway. The reason was, like I said, if we go back to our equity curve, there was one period when we went through a 7R drawdown. Other than that, the other drawdowns we've had 2 5R drawdowns and 1 4R drawdown. And that hadn't happened when I was looking at data. Most of the drawdowns were in the region around about 3R. Therefore, I felt comfortable taking larger size, knowing that I have a couple of good winning trades in a row. I'm probably already there, but it's going to take 4 or 5 losing trades in a row to actually be wiped out. And the data was showing me that the strategy that I'm trading with the refinements I've made didn't have large periods of consecutive losses. The opposite was true. It went through periods with massive, like lots of consecutive winners, but it didn't have periods where you'd have 4, 5, 6 losers in a row. It didn't have periods where you had 4 out of 5 losers very often, maybe once a month. So I knew that the likelihood is that I could go with a larger size and get funded easier. Getting funded is not an easy thing to do if you're trading and your average risk is $30, $40, $50. If you're taking a $50 as a 1R risk, even if you adjust size, you say $50 is my average loss size, you need to make 60R to get funded. If you can make 60R, then why make 60R and not get paid for it, right? That's the way I look at it. 60R might take you 2 months. And people would say, well, use that and you don't have to risk any money. Forget all of that. If you have a strategy, you can prove that you execute it well. I would say do it so that you just have to make 10R, get funded, and then the next 50R you make over the next 2 months, then you drop down to the size that you want to. And we're going to talk more about that in next week's episode. But make the 10R a size that you go, right, I need to make 7, 8, 9, 10R, then I'm funded. Great. Then go to the size that you want to trade. The only way you can do that, however, as I said last week, was making sure you have a very large edge, which is proven, and that your accuracy levels are high enough that you can pull that money out of the account, or pull that money out of the edge, is probably what I should have said. So again, if you're interested in BULENOX, either check out the link I have below. It's an affiliate link, so I do get a little bit of kickback from that. If you want to support me, amazing. If you want to do it cheaply, look elsewhere. This is it for today's episode. Next week, we're going to go through that final day where I got funded because it's quite a funny story. And I'm also going to go through the plan I now have going forward with this account. And I'll also in that video show you the proof of what it looks like to get funded with the certificate and everything, which is going to be a really cool thing to show you guys. Thanks for watching till the end of the video. Just adding a quick piece in here to let you know what extra services I have to help you become a better trader. On my site, guidedtradingmeditations.com, you can find my new course, The Trading Blueprint, which gives you a full guide on how to create an edge, test it, start trading it, and scale up. There are sections included on how to find the weaknesses in your trading and then how to resolve them, as well as many other bits of information that I've gathered in my years of experience. The aim of the course is to make you a fully independent trader so you don't need to pay ever-growing monthly fees to be in a chat room. There's no specific edge needed. You can use this in any market with any trading style. If you're at a stage in your trading where you're struggling and would prefer a more in-depth look at your own personal weaknesses and ongoing support, you can also book one-on-one coaching with me on the site. There's a cool breakdown on the screen right now, so pause the video and read through it, and if it's something you're interested in, check it out. There's a ton of other content on the site that I'm really proud of and I've really enjoyed making, so if you're interested, please check it out. I'm sure there'll be something on there that can help your trading. You can reach me on Twitter. My handle is in the description down below. You can send me a DM if you'd like any more information, and make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with future videos.